on, forward!
A large herd of wild boars appears directly inside the cultivated area, moving in clearly defined groups. They do not scatter but maintain even spacing, forming a coordinated formation with strong cohesion. As they push deeper inside, the herd begins rooting continuously, tearing up the soil across a wide area. Patches of earth are overturned in sequence, while crops quickly collapse in different sections. The activity is synchronized and sustained, causing the affected area to expand rapidly. When humans appear, some individuals immediately react, pausing briefly to observe before quickly retreating out of the area, showing a high level of alertness. The camera system captures the herd's activity clearly at different times of day. The footage shows them following fixed routes, returning to the same area multiple times with behavior that barely changes. In several close encounters, when humans approach at short distance, the herd quickly disperses, but still maintains a shared direction of movement. A few larger individuals respond more aggressively, turning back briefly before retreating. These situations reveal that the herd can react quickly and is difficult to control individually, making it necessary to shift toward a coordinated, group-based control strategy. To assess the entire area, aerial surveys are conducted using a helicopter flying multiple passes. From above, the disturbed land appears as long, continuous strips. These traces connect with each other, forming clearly identifiable movement corridors. The most heavily impacted zones are typically aligned along these paths. Based on this, the herd's primary direction of movement is determined. Key intersections and concentration areas are mapped out precisely. Using the collected data, trap locations are selected with accuracy, creating the conditions needed to control most of the herd in a single, effective operation. The trap is placed directly along the habitual routes the herd frequently uses. The surrounding environment is left unchanged to avoid altering their natural behavior. Bait is distributed from the outside, gradually leading inward into the trap area. This setup creates a natural pathway, allowing the herd to approach without changing direction. The main bait is positioned at the center, where it has the strongest attraction. Once completed, the trap area gradually becomes a familiar feeding point for the herd, significantly increasing the frequency of their return. During subsequent visits, the herd begins approaching the trap area along the established bait trail. At first, only a few individuals enter to explore. When no signs of danger are detected, others quickly follow. The number inside increases steadily with each movement wave. The herd gradually moves deeper inside, gathering around the area where the bait is most concentrated. The distance between individuals narrows, indicating that their level of caution has decreased. Their movement becomes more stable and natural with each repeated approach. When most of the herd is inside the trap area, the activation moment is carefully chosen. Some individuals are still moving inward, while those already inside cluster around the food source. At that point, the trap system is triggered. The gate shuts quickly, sealing off all exits in a very short time. The boars react immediately, rushing in different directions to find a way out but failing. Some individuals collide with the trap edges before stopping. The entire process happens quickly and efficiently, capturing the majority of the herd in a single operation. After the trap is triggered, the system is checked to ensure stable operation. The herd is contained inside and handled according to the planned procedure. Transportation is carried out carefully to ensure safety. Controlling the population helps reduce damage to the cultivated area. When properly maintained, this method contributes to stabilizing the environment and preventing repeated impacts in the future.
If this herd can survive tonight, what is preserved is not just a few rows of trees or a patch of farmland. It is an entire year of labor, days under the sun and wind, hours of constant care, all of which can vanish overnight if wild boars sweep through. In many rural areas across the United States, this scenario is no longer unfamiliar. It repeats itself again and again, silently yet devastatingly, as dozens of hectares of land are torn apart before the sun even rises. With wild boars, everything happens faster than human response capacity. They leave little time for thinking or preparation. Once a target is chosen, they move according to their own plan, quietly and with precision. Statistics show that even a group of 15 to 20 individuals is enough to destroy more than 1 hectare of crops within a few nighttime hours. And what is even more concerning than their destructive power is the way they learn. If not addressed early, the damage will quickly spiral out of control. Recovery costs are always far higher than initial prevention costs. And the longer it continues, the more cautious the herd becomes. Sound devices and simple deterrents may work at first, but over time, they gradually lose effectiveness. Wild boars learn very quickly. They adapt, remember, and adjust their behavior after only a few encounters. Instead of betting everything on a large-scale solution from the beginning, the first strategic step is surprisingly simple: set up a small trap for observation. This is not the stage for catching as many as possible, but for understanding the herd's behavior. Which one leads? Which one is the most alert? How long does it take for the entire group to enter the baited area? These seemingly minor details ultimately determine the outcome. Just one small mistake can cause the opportunity to disappear completely. If the herd detects any unusual sign, they may not return for days, even weeks. In wildlife control, understanding behavior is always more important than acting hastily. Patience in the early stage is an investment in long-term effectiveness. Once the herd's movement patterns and reactions become clear, the strategy begins to shift. The setup cannot remain unchanged for too long, as that would make the trap detectable. The trap height is adjusted, and the activation timing is recalculated with greater precision. When the herd's reaction time is reduced to a minimum, the chance of escape becomes almost non-existent. A drop trap does not need to be complex. What matters is timing. When triggered at the right moment, the entire herd has almost no time to scatter. Their herd instinct, the very trait that helps them survive, becomes their weakness. They move together, react together, and when captured, they are captured all at once. As a result, the damage is stopped at the source before it can spread. After successful captures, the trapping system continues to be refined. The mechanism becomes smoother, the structure stronger, yet without unnecessary complexity. Costs may increase, but every adjustment is based on real data collected in the field. Bait placement is optimized. Activation timing is fine-tuned. The goal is not the biggest trap, but the most suitable one for the specific conditions of each area. Ultimately, effectiveness does not come from scale, but from understanding. Understanding how the herd moves. Understanding how they react. And most importantly, understanding when to act. When these elements come together, control is gradually regained. If you have ever faced a similar situation, you will understand that this is not just a battle against an animal. It is a battle of patience, observation, and making the right decision at the right time. Block the right path, act at the critical moment, and above all, always comply with local regulations and work with experienced professionals to ensure safety for both people and the surrounding environment.
In just one night, the entire field seemed to be wiped out by something moving in the darkness. There was no warning, no clear sound. Everything happened so silently that no one noticed. By the next morning, when helicopters began scanning the area, the scale of the damage only became visible from above. Long strips of disturbed soil appeared like cuts slicing across the field, stretching from the forest edge deep into the production area. And this was not an isolated case. Within just a few weeks, the damage surged. Some areas recorded more than 30% of crops affected. And in the United States, total annual losses caused by wild boars exceed $2.5 billion. These numbers did not appear overnight. They accumulated from small, repeating signs, upturned soil, damaged crop rows, expanding empty patches. When everything repeats long enough, it is no longer an incident, but a pattern silently taking shape. Wild boars do not move randomly. They learn and remember extremely quickly. Once they identify an area with a stable food source, they will return along the exact same route. Surveillance cameras show that the herd often appears at the same time, moves in the same direction, and stops at familiar points. This means that without a proper strategy, any temporary prevention becomes meaningless. More importantly, with every failed attempt to intercept them, they grow more cautious. Once they learned the risk, controlling them becomes significantly more difficult. Instead of continuing passive defense, a large-scale trapping system began to be deployed. The location was not chosen randomly, but based on data collected over many consecutive days. An open area located directly along the herd's main travel route was identified as the optimal point. Here, steel posts were driven deep into the ground, forming a circular frame large enough to contain the entire herd if they entered at once. The spacing between the posts was precisely calculated to eliminate weak points. The entire structure had to be strong enough to withstand simultaneous impacts from multiple adult animals. Once the frame was completed, steel mesh panels were secured around it, creating an enclosed space that still felt open enough to avoid suspicion. Every detail was handled carefully, minimizing human scent as much as possible. Then, the most critical phase began: baiting. Fermented corn was spread in a long trail, starting from outside and leading deep into the center of the trap. The scent dispersed lightly, enough to attract without raising alarm. The amount of bait was gradually increased each day to build a sense of complete safety. Any unusual signs were eliminated, ensuring the herd had no reason to distrust the area. During the first nights, the trap was not activated. The herd was allowed to get used to the location, moving in and out freely without encountering any obstacles. Cameras recorded each animal entering, feeding, and leaving calmly. This was the key step. Only when they completely lowered their guard would the opportunity to control the entire herd truly appear. At the right moment, when the number of individuals entering at the same time reached its peak, the trap mechanism was finally triggered. The gate dropped instantly, sealing off all exits. The silence was broken immediately. The herd panicked, charging in all directions, trying to escape. The ground shook under their weight and constant impact. But this time, there were no gaps left to exploit. The system had been designed to contain the entire herd, leaving no individuals outside. And the real change did not lie in the moment the trap closed, but in the nights that followed. No more repeated movements on the cameras. No more tracks stretching along the fences. The field returned to stillness, a different kind of stillness than before, not the calm before damage, but the calm after the cycle had been broken. For the farmers, it was not just a successful control effort. It was the first time they had truly regained control.
Stuff in a mess, isn't it?
For many years working alongside my father in wild boar control, I came to understand one key principle. When they begin appearing on roads, it is no longer just a farm issue. In places like Texas, herds follow familiar routes, so the risk extends beyond crops to traffic as well. A boar weighing hundreds of kilos rushing out at night can cause a serious accident, making control something that must be handled in a structured way. The next morning, I went with my father to meet farmers and the control team. A map was quickly laid out, marking areas of torn soil, repeated trails, and crossing points where herds frequently passed. No one said much, because everyone understood these signs were critical data. They revealed not only location, but also movement patterns that in wide regions like Texas. Some teams use helicopters to observe from above. From that view, movement paths become clearer, disturbed soil lines and trails cutting across fields. The helicopter is not used for capture, but it helps determine exactly where traps should be placed, avoiding mistakes in setup. The operation was divided into two directions. I went with my father to place blocking traps along narrow paths, routes the herd must take to reach residential areas. Meanwhile, another team set up a large corral trap at a central point. If blocking traps guide movement, the corral is where the circle closes, aiming to control the entire herd at once.
Has its own battery pack. The
bait was placed in layers from the outside inward, creating a natural approach. On the first night, the boar stayed outside and observed. On the second night, a few stepped in. Over the following nights, the whole herd gradually became familiar with the area. There was no rush, because acting at the wrong moment could cause them not to return. Once the herd was moving comfortably inside, the most critical moment began. The gate dropped in an instant, and the space inside immediately turned chaotic. Large bodies pressed together, repeatedly hitting the steel frame in search of a way out. The heavy, continuous sound created a clear sense of pressure, even for those watching from outside that I... In that moment, my father did not focus on the chaos. He focused on structure. He checked load points and joints to make sure everything held steady. If any part failed, all previous planning would become meaningless. This was not the moment to act, but to verify the plan. But the trap held firm. No animal escaped, and no pressure spread outward. At the same time, the outer traps blocked any individuals that tried to break away. The entire team stayed in position, following the plan exactly. That coordination allowed the whole system to function as a closed loop.
You did it. They're not as small as... Ooh. Yep. Come on. Get the bus. Hip. Get the bus. Hip. Let's go ahead and shut it.
That a week later, the results became clear. No more herds crossing roads anymore, and no new tracks near residential areas. Cameras showed growing calm, and people began sleeping better. Roads that once felt dangerous became safer. Not because the problem disappeared, but because it was properly controlled at INT.
Yeah. Good job. There we go. Yep.
Texas, and many other states, wild boars cause billions of dollars in damage every year. They do not just eat, they destroy soil, roots, and irrigation systems within hours. That is why modern traps are not meant to eliminate them completely, but to control behavior and reduce conflict. If you found this useful, leave a comment and don't forget to follow for more real-world situations.
In this area, wild boars are no longer a rare sight. Reports from local authorities have repeatedly recorded their heavy presence around populated areas, along with clear recommendations for population control to limit the damage. The moment we arrived, we understood how serious the problem had become. The ground had been torn into long strips, and the soft soil looked as if it had been plowed by an invisible storm. The edge of the forest was covered with overlapping tracks, both large and small, showing that the whole sounder had been moving through here for many nights in a row. But in situations like this, rushing in is always a mistake. Every measure has to follow the proper procedure. Before doing anything, we worked with local authorities, completed the necessary permits, and agreed on a trapping plan. Only after everything was approved did the operation begin. We did not rush to set the trap. Instead, we took time to survey the terrain, follow the familiar travel routes, and choose an open patch of ground along a trail through the forest. Behind it was a line of trees thick enough to block visibility, while the front remained open enough for wild boars to enter naturally. Once the location was confirmed, the team assembled the trap frame, drove the stakes firmly into the ground, tightened every tie point, and secured the bottom edge of the net close to the soil. Every detail was checked carefully, because even one small mistake could ruin the entire plan. Once everything was finished, the trapdoor was left open. Bait was placed, and a camera was installed discreetly to monitor the site. Not long after, adult wild boars appeared. They approached, sniffed the air, and then cautiously stepped inside. Everyone held their breath. Then the trap was triggered. The net closed quickly and cleanly, and the boars panicked, searching for a way out, but there was no escape. Only a small group was held, but that was enough to confirm that the trap worked exactly as intended. From that result, we continued to expand. More traps were built in the areas showing the heaviest signs of damage. Each location was adjusted to fit the terrain, but the core principles remained the same: discreet, solid, and leaving no obvious trace. Everything was done quietly, step by step, with patience and calculation. Night fell faster than we expected. At the eastern trap, the thermal camera began to record the first movements. A few adults appeared and walked straight into the area as if they had already grown used to coming there for food. One by one, they entered. When the number inside was enough, and no individuals remained outside watching, the signal was given. The trap closed. Sound exploded through the darkness. Their heavy bodies slammed into the edge of the trap, shaking the whole structure violently. For the first few seconds, everything was nearly chaotic. But then the structure held firm. As the movement gradually slowed, we knew the situation was under control. The next morning, we decided to try a different approach, a simpler trap, deep in the dense forest. There was no steel frame or complex system, only bamboo, branches, and forest vines, carefully camouflaged beneath green leaves. It was a crude structure, yet almost invisible in the natural surroundings. When night fell, the forest sank into silence. Then a single wild boar appeared. It moved closer, step by step, unaware that anything was wrong, until the trap suddenly dropped. In a single moment, the silence was shattered. The simple bamboo frame did its job, holding the animal securely inside. A rough, primitive trap, yet enough to prove that sometimes effectiveness does not come from complexity. After confirming that everything was stable, the captured animals were handled using humane methods, fully in line with local regulations and with care taken to avoid affecting the surrounding ecosystem. There was no rushing, no reckless action. Standing among the traps we had just checked, I realized that the most important thing was not the number of animals caught, but the fact that the problem had been controlled properly and at the right time. Because if you only deal with animals one by one, the whole sounder will soon return, and next time, they will not make the same mistake again.
African swine fever, or ASF, is an extremely dangerous virus for both domestic pigs and wild boars, and what makes it especially alarming is its ability to survive for a very long time in the environment. In cold conditions or in meat products that have not been properly processed, the virus can remain alive for hundreds of days, silently extending the risk of large-scale transmission. Although ASF does not pose a danger to humans, it is a serious threat to the pig industry and the global pork supply. The virus can spread through direct contact between wild boars and domestic pigs, through contaminated meat products, as well as through polluted environments. Because of how quickly it can spread and its impact on entire herds, whenever a suspected outbreak appears, specialist teams must immediately arrive in protective gear to control the site, prevent the risk from spreading further, and protect biosecurity in the surrounding area. For that reason, the damage in my uncle's field was no longer just a story of crop loss. When wild boars began appearing in large numbers around the land, the danger was not limited to rows of corn being torn apart, but also to the possibility that they could become a link-carrying disease closer to livestock areas. A herd of wild boars passing through the farm could leave behind not only tracks, mud, and trampled crops, but also the fear of silent transmission that the human eye cannot see. That is why we could no longer keep reacting in a piecemeal way, dealing with the problem one night at a time, and instead had to move toward a more systematic management approach, where every step, from observation and movement control to trap deployment, had to serve a larger purpose: protecting crops, protecting livestock, and reducing biosecurity risks across the entire area. After completing the risk assessment and setting the traps, we moved into the stage that required the most patience, baiting. We used clean fermented corn, a scent that strongly attracts wild boars. Keeping the bait point consistent over multiple nights helped gather the whole herd into a predictable movement pattern, while also reducing environmental disturbance and limiting the risk of them spreading out to other farms. By the third day, they still stood at a distance, sniffing cautiously. By the fifth day, the boldest ones finally began to move closer and tasted. We kept watching until the 10th day. After several nights without detecting any danger, their level of caution gradually dropped. They kept coming back again and again, slowly treating the place as a safe feeding spot. And when the wild boars had lost most of their caution, the trap system also entered a ready state. That night was the decisive moment. Images from the cameras were transmitted live to the monitoring center, while we relied on the terrain and the size of the herd to choose the right moment to activate the trap. And along a narrow trail, a leg snare had been set at exactly the point where a wild boar usually stepped. This was not the kind of trap meant to hold an entire herd, but a method designed to target single individuals that broke away from the group or moved through a tight passage. After a long wait, one wild boar slowly advanced along the familiar trail. The moment its front leg touched the exact spot, the trap instantly tightened and held it in place. The whole moment happened very quickly, bringing many days of observation and waiting for the right time to an end. The full herd control strategy had finally proven effective. The next morning, the entire handling process would be carried out humanely and in full accordance with biosecurity standards. Protecting the environment, livestock, and human safety always remains the top priority. Because the ultimate goal is not just to stop immediate damage, but to build a long-term management system, carry out responsible population control, and maintain ecological balance. That is the sustainable solution for protecting crops and moving towards safer coexistence between humans and nature.
What would happen if radioactive wild boar herds suddenly flooded into farms? And if you had to face hundreds of thousands of them, what would you do to keep your crops safe? This is no longer a hypothetical scenario, but a reality that has forced farmers around the world to find solutions. The root of the problem traces back to the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster in 2011 in Japan, when a large amount of radiation was released into the environment, spreading across land and surrounding ocean areas. In that context, wild boars quickly became one of the most concerning species. They frequently forage in coastal areas, regions highly vulnerable to radiation, and gradually carry potential risks as they move closer to residential zones. Although exact figures remain unclear, many estimates suggest that millions of wild animals worldwide are exposed to radiation, mainly concentrated in Europe, Asia, and North America, regions that provide suitable habitats for this species. In some residential areas, the presence of wild boars has led to increasingly complex situations. Under growing pressure, authorities have been forced to organize control operations to limit dangerous individuals within the area. Specialized equipment is deployed to ensure both effectiveness and community safety. At the same time, the entire capture process is carried out under strict supervision to minimize negative impacts on the animals. Flexibility in approach and the ability to respond quickly have helped gradually bring the situation under control. Beyond protecting people, these measures also contribute to maintaining ecological balance. In particular, building fences is no longer just a temporary solution, but has become a long-term strategy. Residents in frequently affected areas clearly understand the level of damage to crops and orchards, so they are willing to invest significant resources to create stable protection for their livelihoods. To address the issue of radioactive wild boars, farmers have begun applying scientific methods to control the rapidly growing population. They carefully study the behavior and biology of the species, then develop suitable trapping systems. Traps are placed in forests where wild boars frequently appear, as well as in areas near farms, locations they tend to revisit repeatedly. These cage traps are designed discreetly to improve capture efficiency while ensuring safety. Bait is placed inside to lure the animals, and once a boar enters, an automatic mechanism triggers the door to close. This method is especially effective at night, when wild boars are most active, and helps prevent them from learning to avoid traps. To support the process, farmers also use specialized tools to handle them safely. In addition to cage traps, simpler methods are also used, such as sound-triggered traps, a low-cost solution that still delivers notable results. Some traps utilize large trees as anchor points, combined with bait and natural leaf camouflage to increase capture success. These approaches not only reduce costs, but also demonstrate adaptability to real-world conditions while minimizing the risk of affecting other species. Regardless of the method used, the most important factor remains careful consideration of environmental and ethical impacts. Wild boar control must be carried out safely, avoiding negative effects on ecosystems and preventing unintended consequences. Do you have a better solution? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more upcoming videos.
For decades now, farmers and ranchers have struggled to control the rising population of destructive and dangerous feral hogs.
Brazil is facing one of the most alarming biological invasions ever recorded. A unique hybrid type of pig, covered in a natural armor, made of scar tissue and hardened fat up to 5 centimeters thick, is rendering most traditional control methods ineffective. They can breach electric fences, evade traps, and reproduce at an astonishing rate, up to 20 piglets per litter. Their presence not only disrupts forest ecosystems, but also poses a serious risk of spreading disease, directly impacting the global food supply chain. The origins of this situation date back to the early 20th century, when European wild boars were introduced to South America for hunting purposes. Already known for their resilience, they gradually adapted to the new environment. When hunting farms were no longer maintained, these animals escaped into the wild and began expanding their range. The turning point came when they crossbred with domestic pigs, animals known for their high reproductive capacity. This combination didn't weaken them. Instead, it created a hybrid with both wild strength and rapid growth. The result is the Java porco, a population that can reach up to 300 kilograms per individual, with exceptional physical power and adaptability. One of their most notable features is the dense subdermal structure composed of scar tissue, hardened fat, and tightly connected muscle layers, functioning as a natural shield that significantly reduces the impact of conventional control measures. In addition, their tusks are constantly sharpened through natural friction, becoming highly effective defensive tools. Beyond their physical advantages, they exhibit strong adaptability, living in organized groups led by experienced females who can memorize vast territories and adjust behavior when facing threats. As a result, their impact goes far beyond foraging, extending into environmental damage, as their rooting behavior alters soil structure, disrupts ecosystems, affects water sources, and increases the risk of transmitting diseases to livestock and humans if not properly controlled. In this context, large-scale control methods have been implemented with a completely different approach. Instead of causing disruption, trap systems are designed to blend into the natural environment. Steel posts are arranged in a wide circular formation, not fully enclosed from the start. There is no sudden drop mechanism or anything that might trigger panic. Every detail is designed to create a sense of familiarity and safety. Food is initially placed outside the area, then gradually moved deeper inside over time. This process continues without direct human intervention, allowing the herd to develop a natural habit of entering the space. Once familiarity reaches a stable level, the entire group begins to move into the trap area as part of their normal behavior. At this stage, human involvement truly begins, through remote monitoring systems using cameras. Operators patiently wait for a single moment, when every individual is fully inside the controlled area. No animals left outside. No unexpected variables. Only when this condition is met is the decision made. The activation mechanism is quick and precise. The gate closes in an instant, forming a fully enclosed space with no gaps. However, behind that moment lies a preparation process that can take days, even weeks. If triggered too early, part of the herd will escape and change their behavior. If too late, the opportunity may be lost. This is not a race against time, but a coordination of observation, analysis, and perfect timing. The entire process demands patience and minimizes human presence to the greatest extent possible. There are no sudden interventions, and the environment is kept unchanged to maintain a natural feel. It is this stillness that allows the herd to continue its routine, while in reality, every movement is carefully calculated. When the moment comes, a single precise action is enough to complete the entire operation.
Load up! Load up! Load up!
Not everyone has ever seen an entire herd of wild boars trapped inside a single enclosure. I've witnessed it a few times, but never on that kind of scale. That night, when the system tightened, the tension filled the air, anchor lines humming, the net shaking hard. Inside, the herd panicked, trampling over each other and searching for a way out. And it all started from a patch of ground that had been torn apart. The first time I visited Uncle James's farm, things had already gone far beyond control. The grass field was ripped into large patches, the soil turned over heavily, with signs scattered across the entire area. You didn't even need to see the boars. Just looking at the ground told the whole story. A large herd had passed through during the night, and not just once. Neighbors nearby confirmed they kept coming back for weeks, despite every attempt to drive them away. Lights stayed on all night, guards rotated shifts, even multiple deterrent methods were used, but nothing worked. What stood out wasn't just the level of destruction, but how quickly the herd adapted. They returned on schedule, followed the same paths, and grew more confident each time. Once it had gone on that long, the solution couldn't be reactive anymore. It had to shift into a controlled, systematic approach. The next morning, we began setting up the trap early. The netting was carried into the forest, teams worked in sections, each anchor point secured tightly to tree trunks. The work seemed simple, but it demanded precision, because even a small misalignment could render the entire system useless. Once everything was in place, it became completely still. There was nothing left to do but wait for the right moment. The herd wasn't forced into the trap. They followed their own habits, guided by bait and familiarity. The lead boar appeared first, paused to observe, then stepped inside. The rest followed behind, one by one, without the slightest suspicion. Once they started feeding, their alertness gradually dropped. The longer they stayed, the deeper they moved into the center, never realizing the enclosure had already closed around them. The circular trap design worked exactly as intended. There were no blind spots to escape through, no weak points to break. When they sensed something wrong, their only instinct was to run. But in a closed circular space, running only drained their energy faster. They kept circling, crashing into the net, sending strong vibrations through it, yet the entire structure held firm. Every charge only tightened the net further, never weakening it. There were no gaps, no break points. No matter how they struggled, rammed, or tried to break free, it all led to the same outcome: exhaustion. That was when I understood the core principle of this system. Once the entire herd steps into the circle, the chance of escape is almost gone. Not because the trap is complex, but because it uses the herd's own behavior against them. The entire process was monitored through screens. It wasn't fear, it was intense focus. As notifications began appearing continuously from different points, we knew the system was working exactly as planned. Not just one trap, but multiple locations were reporting results. The feeling in that moment was a mix of tension and relief, as the long chain of damage was finally brought to a stop. What came next followed a set procedure. Each animal was controlled and transported, the numbers so large we had to rethink the logistics. But what mattered more was the outcome. The farm was no longer being destroyed every night, and the people living there could finally sleep peacefully again. On the drive back, in the quiet of the vehicle, I realized that success didn't come from a single moment, but from a process of observation and patience. Control doesn't come from the size of the trap, but from the precision of timing and execution. If you've ever faced a situation like this, share your experience. And if you found this useful, don't forget to follow for more real-world strategies like this.